Hey there, my name's Cole Bowden, and I'm a developer advocate here at Firebolt. In this video, we'll be talking about reading external data with table-valued functions. Before discussing why you'd want to use a read TVF, let's discuss what it is. It's a function that reads from a file, such as a CSV or Parquet file, and returns an entire table. So you call the function, and the function returns a table value, thus table-valued function. Now, the motivation for this is going to require some context, and we'll start with the architecture of Firebolt, where you have an engine with some number of nodes, and generally you're going to connect that to a database in Firebolt. Now, in your database, you're going to have a number of tables, and the most common pattern is to have a normal Firebolt table that you've ingested data into. Now, ingestion is a process that takes some time. You have to scan all the data, ingest it, and convert it into the Firebolt file format. And sometimes you don't have time to do that, or you don't want to go through that process just yet. That's why we have external tables. They behave exactly like other tables, but you reference the data in an external location. Now, this still requires a little bit of overhead and setup, as you have to do schema validation and manually define every column within an external table. So that you can read directly from S3, it's a little bit more of a process. And that's where read TVFs come in. They don't require you to have a database at all, and they're even lighter weight. You can just invoke a read TVF, reference the location where the files are that you want to read, and start doing analysis on the data that exists there immediately. With no overhead or setup, it's great for lightweight analysis of files that you've recently uploaded. It's also good to do selective create table as select statements, where you're going to ingest the data, but you only want to ingest some subset of it. And then you can use a read TVF to filter on that data before moving it into a Firebolt table, where you'll have full indexing support and more performant queries. Now, let's show read TVFs in action. Our list objects function is likely where you're going to want to start, as it shows you what's available to you within a given bucket or directory. You can see when I run it on the Firebolt sample dataset, we have JSON files, CSV files, as well as a couple folders that I know to have Parquet files within them. Now, normally when you're reading from a bucket, it's going to be a private bucket, and you can provide credentials as part of your query to authorize yourself to go read from that bucket. More recommended, you can create a location and then reference that location as part of your later queries. However, in this example, I'm using a public bucket, so that isn't necessary. Once we understand what files and folders and data we're looking at, we can start doing our exploratory analysis. Here, I'm using the read Parquet function to read from that playstats folder, and I'm using the wildcard operator, the star, to read from every single Parquet file within this directory. When we run this function, you can see that we get results back as if this is a table. And we're inferring the schema for this table, so we have all of our column names, we have different data types for these columns based on what data is available, and we can treat this as if it is a full table. So, for example, we could filter on this last column here, called error code, where we're interested in only the save glitches. And you'll see that we can do this perfectly, and it gives you results back as quickly as you'd expect. Now, the other motivation for this is that we can do create table as select, where we're filtering on our data. So here I'm creating a table called level 2 playstats. I'm using indexing so that I can have more performant queries down the line on this data, but I'm filtering on current level equals 2. I'm only looking at the data where the level is 2, and I can use that for further analysis down the line. So I'm going to kick off this create table as select, create and index a table within Firebolt, and we'll be back in less than a minute once this is completed. Now that I've created the table, I could do some more analysis. And I've got a query here that really gets into some more sophistication that you can use read TVFs for. I'm using the table I created, level 2 playstats, and I'm joining that on a read Parquet function for the rankings directory. And in this way, I can do analysis on the data that I have in Firebolt, as well as the external data. And this shows you the power of that exploratory analysis and how read TVFs truly behave as tables. So here, I'm going to look at how different cars perform within this data set and what scores they get. I can run this query, and you'll see we get results back very quickly, where we can see how different cars have different medium placements on this level. To learn more about read TVFs, check out our technical blog on the feature linked in the description of this video. Thanks for watching.